Hello, my name is Simon. Welcome to Why Is That, a free speech platform where we explore big ideas and the controversies of our time. Hello, beloveds. On the last show, we covered only 6% of the US citizens trust the media. Why is that? Today, people are fact-checking the media in real time. Got News, run by Chelsea Johnson, is one such example. But why are people losing trust in the media? How is their credibility being eroded? Today we'll be looking at the Gamergate controversy as a case study for this. And we're joined by Danny I keep saying Duchamp, but
it's actually Duchamp, but if you say Duchamp, people are more likely to be able to spell it, so go with that. That's fine, I don't mind.
But the French one sounds so much more classy.
Duchamp, yes. Oh, God. So, yeah, Gamergate. I don't think that many listeners are going to know what it is unless they're in exactly the right age bracket and are nerds.
This has to do with, well, the slogan was ethics in games journalism, and to do with trying to work in feminist influence into game development.
Well, initially what it sprung out of was a lot of people... There was a controversy surrounding a specific game developer who it had been discovered that they were sort of, to put it simply, sleeping with some games reviewers, and that was brought to the public light, and a lot of people were obviously outraged about this. You know, they want objective reviews, and they are media about the art form that they are interested in. Fair enough. But...
I mean, with games media, we kind of knew we were being shilled to by companies, but when absolute games were getting rave reviews, people started asking what was on, and just to cover, you know, people like, why would I care about games journalism, etc. This ended up with people at the UN calling for the censorship of the internet, and the UN going, truly frightening stuff from very humble beginnings.
It was. I mean, it might seem like a bit of a jump to get from, there was this one game developer who made a terrible game. It was terrible, by the way. It was basically, you could have made it in Word. It was awful. But anyway.
It was like a pick-a-path book.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't even a good one. It was called Depression Quest, I think.
By Zoe Quinn.
That was the one. Anyway, so that was pointed out, and... what instantly happened was that every piece of games media straight away said, this person, Zoe Quinn, is being harassed ruthlessly. And everyone lost their shit, because there's some... When the games media is talking about your activism to try to fix it in that light, I mean, it just compounds the problem, obviously. To this day, if you look up Gamergate on Google, a few of the more popular sites, even the big news media ones, will refer to it as, Gamergate, that was this harassment campaign where this innocent games developer was being harassed by people. And it sort of brought to light the extent to which this concept of... As sort of social justice is what it's often referred to as, but it's anti-sexism taken to a ridiculous extreme, where if you criticize a woman, you're harassing her. And all of those people who were involved in that Gamergate controversy, or at least were campaigning against it, they saw the news media lying about them just blatantly, or big news sources, The Guardian, BBC, and... is it any surprise that those people will never trust the media again?
And it was quite a young age bracket, you know, who, their parents might, it's on the news, you believe it. But, you know, these are people who are like sitting at home and, go, the news is, this is figurative, there's a bombs going off in the area. And they're like, no, there's not. Would you trust the media after that?
Yeah.
And especially a lot of prominent pro-Gamergaters were women,
there was a hashtag on Twitter called Not Your Shield, where women and other people who would have been considered, a protected minority, like if they were, I believe people of colour is now the correct term for some reason, but...
I thought that was racist. It's hard to keep track.
No, coloured is racist, but people of colour is progressive. I'm sure it'll reverse in about 5 years.
and of course, if you're trans,
yes,
there's another one. It's like, why aren't we seeing more trans characters? And even trans gamers were like, what?
Yeah.
And it's just people saying, don't use us to justify your agenda.
Yeah, there's so hashtag Not Your Shield was sort of like the backup one to Gamergate, but it was all essentially about the consumers of this particular art form refusing to let all of the journalism about their game, their art form, and all of the creators of those art forms start policing themselves to be in line with this agenda, and losing their objectivity and their creative freedom to this agenda. And still, to this day, it's called a harassment campaign. So,
well, it depends what forum you go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you just go, if you go to like Guardian or presumably, one of the would have thought objective news sources, the real news sources, they will call it a harassment campaign off the bat, and it's just because they never actually asked anyone involved in it at all.
Well, this is what we'd call the mainstream media, which a lot of people are completely abandoning, turning to places like YouTube to find, frankly, more intelligent content.
You're welcome.
Did we mention Danny has a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
And that this show is hosted on a YouTube channel? It's not shameless if you're plugging it during, halfway through, before or after.
Well, it is shameless.
Yeah, sure.
It's okay. No shame is deserved here.
But there were people that rose up during anti-Gamergate, feminists who became quite well known. You had Anita Sarkeesian, who appeared on the Colbert Report and did the talking rounds, pushing this point of view, and she was one of the delegation, as well as Zoe Quinn, who made the game Depression Quest that really sparked it all off, that ended up at the UN calling for the censorship of the internet for the protection of women. There
was a quote in there that Anita Sarkeesian delivered at the UN where she said, harassment, it is death threats and sexual comments, but it's also the day-to-day grind of, like, you suck. So, this is someone actually at the UN complaining that people online are mean to her. That is insane. These people are insane.
Yes. I mean, you have a certain segment on the internet that can be termed trolls, that will do something to, provoke a response. You've got, I can't think of his name. He's a prominent Jewish reporter, and it's like, why am I getting all these anti-Semitic, where's all this anti-Semitism coming from? But it's just a lot of, young people trying to provoke a response from, authority. They're not raving Nazis or anything. They just want to get a rise out of people. And sure, that's a bit crappy, but, it is what it is. It's not a cause for to authoritatively coming down like communist China on the World Wide Web.
No, I mean, growing up, I'm sure everyone said stupid things to authority figures just to get a rise out of them, whether it was saying something to a teacher or a parent. And that's the same reason that people always have their most divergent political beliefs when in their late teens, when they're sort of discovering everything. And the only difference is now those comments are on the internet for everyone to see, and journalists have this option of taking it all seriously and turning it into some overblown story. Some 16-year-old says a racial epithet on the internet. Okay, it's just some 16-year-old being an idiot. But no, they can turn it into this harassment campaign that shows the inherent racism of our society. And
at the UN, they basically were endorsing, going, yes, we would support such a measure, until people pointed out the quality of the report. It was shocking. One of the references was to somebody's C drive. Oh yeah, it's on my computer. What professional capacity does that ever happen? Let alone as, one of the justifications of censoring the World Wide Web. And there's just this movement of people that want to censor you, that want to control what you say. They actually believe words define reality.
Yeah, it's there seems to be a lack of belief in the concept of free speech. It's getting to the point where I've actually, you will hear, you can find online if there's a lot of different organizations that have done polls and interviews with university students, and a lot of them will say things like the idea of free speech. People who talk about free speech, they're really just the people in the positions of power who narrative anyway, basically referring to any group that they think has the dominant voice, like, I don't know, white people, men, cisgendered people, and they'll refer to these groups as having this dominant voice, which is the only reason they support free speech, which to me clearly says that these people don't care about free speech at all, admittedly. And
nobody's supporting, say nasty things on the internet. Nobody's recommending that. But part of free speech is, the role to offend, the right to offend. I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, and, are we going to say it's harassment when The Daily Show doesn't agree with conservatives? It's...
There's it does seem to be coming heavily from the left at the moment. I consider myself something of a centrist, but there's there have been different times when this sort of pearl clutching, this kind of attempt to turn every little offence into some kind of free speech destruction worthy event. And at the moment, that's on the left. It used to be the right. Trying to ban violent video games and saying rock music was going to corrupt our children and things like that. It's not anymore. It's the left saying that video games are going to make you sexist, or I'm sure they have an equivalent for music, but they would. But the people making the arguably misogynistic music are black, so they're not allowed to criticise them.
In the early 90s, I remember this, in America, the religious right, video games are going to make children want to kill their parents and other such nonsense like that. And now, women are dressed too sexily in video games, that's going to cause men, boys.
Yeah.
What a very dim view of humanity that is.
It is. As far as my position is essentially that people should just express themselves honestly, and kids will, they'll figure out what the intentions behind it are. I mean, that's why all of these kids have been so against this censoring of games, because they can see how transparent it is in terms of its agenda. It's really clear when a piece of art has been sort of hobbled in order to fit some agenda. When they've clearly just, we need to make it a diverse cast, so we'll make this character black and this character gay and this character female, and it's really obvious when they've just used this kind of tokenism to be PC, and it ruins art. It just destroys creative freedom.
And especially when the people criticising them have been caught out, usually on a number of occasions, like Anita Sarkeesian from Feminist Frequency. She was going on about how she was a lifelong gamer, and and then a video emerged of her going and talk at a school saying, I was never really into gaming, blah, blah, I had to learn a lot, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what? And because one of the things where she became prominent was she tried to jump on board, make a video series called, was it Tropes
versus Women in Video Games.
And she received some harassment. It got picked up, what was called harassment.
Quote-unquote harassment.
And she got hundreds of thousands of dollars thrown at her. She was initially meant to raise $20,000. And then a lot of these, the victim bucks, phenomena happened, where you had these prominent feminists that were pushing it, and they'd get all this money, and then after a while nothing would happen, and their Patreons would ebb away, and then they would say something to provoke a response and then go, oh look, I'm being harassed, and the money level would pick up again. And you know, some people look at that and just go, how shameless can you be?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be particularly well hidden that she... I mean, for the purposes of not doing libel, I can't say that she is a scam artist, but it definitely seems to many people that it is that way. The videos that she promised to make with her Kickstarter money 5 years ago, she hasn't made them. These are just short internet videos. People make these all the time on zero budget. I mean, they had some production value, but they weren't that high. Like, many people make videos of much higher quality and production value than the ones that she made for $0. And she didn't make them in 5 years for, what was $100,000? And then, before she's finished these videos, she asks for more money for another series. I think that shows that her supporters are not supporting her because they want the content. They're supporting her so that they can feel good about themselves for defending this poor, harassed woman.
Because, well, a lot of people on Patreon, you know, if you give her this much, you'll get a gift or whatever. She never delivered those either. I mean, and everything we're saying, we're saying this publicly. Feel free to look it up. There was a good video done by Margaret, if you look on YouTube, Margaret McLennan, Anita, It's Time to Stop. That covers the points, that we just talked about. It's like, when you only release a few hours worth of content a year and you received a ton of money, that's going to look suspicious. Very, very suspicious.
Very suspicious, yeah.
And when she's making these videos, Tropes versus Women, and going, oh, well, there was a Batman game. Well, look, his... women, they've, their, how should we say, behinds are shown sexually, and that's sexism. And if you look at this Batman game, it's like Batman's cape is a butt-covering device.
Yeah.
And then people would come out afterwards and say, we've played the whole game throughout, and, screenshots and video clips of, look, what the claim she made is not true. Look, Batman's butt is shown all the time.
Yeah.
And,
I mean... First of all, that is the stupidest thing to care about I have ever heard. Oh, which characters have their butts showing? Well, even if it was exclusively females, okay, that means that they're targeting a male demographic, predominantly straight. Most people are straight, so predominantly straight male demographic, and they were going for some sex appeal. Do we think sex is evil now? I mean, are they going full circle and turning into the religious right, saying that we should all abstain from sex from now on? Is it evil to be turned on by anything ever?
And just people were questioning whether she was an actual gamer and just asking for some basic evidence. Like, if you're an online gamer, you probably have a Steam account. And we know she had a Steam account because she tried to return a game because it was sexist or something. And, it's like, can you just show us what games on, and the games she would review are ones that were kind of older and ones in the same series, and ignored games that sort of didn't fit with her narrative, like the Portal series.
Yeah. I mean, the Portal series I've heard described as a feminist game by some people, which, I mean... It features a female lead. You barely see her, but it does feature a female lead, and apparently that's enough. Although the fact that you can't see her, I suppose, is the point, therefore you can't see her butt, which...
Well, it was a computer, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, the female lead, the character you play as.
Oh, okay.
Well, the computer, is GLaDOS. The computer is... I mean, we're getting into the specifics of the game. I did love Portal. It was a great game.
Which is, as we say, it's just not about computer games. It's like, how did this come to the point of, censorship of the World Wide Web and indoctrination and like Anita Sarkeesian wanted to make Tropes versus Women for a university resource, to be taught in university classes.
Yeah.
This is part of the
infantilization
of our young people. It's like, don't grow up. All your teenage temper tantrums, we're going to validate.
We will pay you to have them.
And spend longer at university. Don't you can have children in your late 30s.
Yeah. No. Well, it's So it all seems to be based off of this, like you're saying, infantilization is basing it all off of victimhood. Victimhood is now a currency. If you can prove that you're part of some oppressed minority, then that gives you some kind of social currency, which you can turn into literal, actual currency, as Anita Sarkeesian proved.
Yeah.
And it's all about who is the most oppressed.
And, but as long as you fit into certain categories.
Yeah.
Like, I'm linked to one of the world's smallest cultures, which is dying. But since I have white skin, no, you can't be a victim.
Yeah. No. It's not about whether you as an individual are a victim. It's about whether you can claim membership to some collective, which is considered to be victimized. But the thing is that even if you accept that sort of collectivism, don't treat people as individuals, treat them as these broad collectives and judge them based on how oppressed they say your collective is, even if you accept that, they're not even doing it right. Like they're saying women time online. Okay, first of all, 99.9% of the time you can't tell what gender someone is online. And second of all, when you can, like in online games and stuff, there has been research and men receive more harassment. Women are more likely to get compliments and people talking to them nicely because it's like, oh my God, it's a girl. If you look for harassment online, like people, death threats, assault threats, abusive language of different varieties. If Pew Research, the gold standard of research, actually did a study on this. You can look it up. Go to I think it's pewresearch.org. You can just Google it. And they did a study on who receives more harassment online, and the answer was men. Men receive more. If that was women, instantly that would have been headline news so that they can claim more victimhood.
Well, it was interesting in the category of cyber stalking, women got the most, but it turns out from when they could tell the gender, it was from other women.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things also in the Pew Research thing, it said, how does this affect you, when you receive, quote unquote harassment? Most men was like, and women were quite, oh yeah, it really hurts me. And it's like, so it's not women, men are being harassed more than women, but women feel it more.
Yeah, so it would explain why people are so willing to instantly accept that, women are the victims of online harassment, which is why they are willing to censor the internet, or try to censor the internet in order to protect the women's. But there's no sort of drive to protect men in that way, because men are sort of considered the oppressor, not the oppressed. Men are the strong ones. So if anything's bad's happening to men, it doesn't make a good headline. You can't get people all worried.
And one thing I want to hit home with this show again and again and again, facts don't care about your feelings. There are objective facts, and I don't care if you have the feels. That doesn't trump facts. Yeah,
and the feels, it does explain, like I was saying, why they are so easy to accept that the women are harassed more, even though it's not true, because it feels like it must be true. You think of women, and you're more likely to think of them as the damsel than the men.
I mean, every time I come across women who are upset, like me and like every man, generally has the urge to try to make it better.
Yeah, it's probably biological to some extent. Probably to a high extent, but it disagrees with the facts at the moment. So,
well, this is this whole movement of there's all this misogyny, which is the irrational hatred of women, all this racism, you know, the irrational hatred of other people's race, all around the corner, all these boogeymen, you know, you don't see it. You know, we live in this great Western country and, you know, great communities and, oh my God, you know, they're all just around the corner. The thing is, you know, men like women. Men really like women.
Yeah, you're far more likely to find a man who will protect you from an attack than one who will attack you.
And this brings us back to the whole Gamergate. The whole essence of it was not only just ethics in game journalism. The more it went on, it became ethics in mainstream journalism.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at all of those mainstream media publications, they were still talking negatively about Gamergate in this very one-sided way that showed that they'd never talked to a single person who actually was in support of Gamergate. And so it really showed this next generation coming through, it just showed them why they shouldn't trust media, mainstream media, because they saw firsthand the lies that the media was willing to tell about them.
And they're willing to go and look things up, and so should you. You should just not take the media's point of view. As I've said before, with 6% of US citizens trusting the media, they export those stories all around the world. You didn't know how much sexism there was in New Zealand until somebody read the Huffington Post.
Yeah. No, they have to make up these boogeymen, though. It's partially to stay... It's partially to make money because those kinds of stories are eye-catching. If you see some article that says, oh, look, the women are under attack, that's eye-catching. But it's also because there are a lot of people who seem to try to convince the media that they represent the majority. Well, they actually don't. If you ask, for example, people it's true across the UK, the US, whether they are a feminist or they support feminism, most will actually say no. But that's quite a strange thing, because all politicians, all these media outlets, they are always very pro-feminism. In fact, if a politician says, I'm not a feminist, that's sort of seen as a career-ending move. And so from what I can see, it's not so much the majority forcing these people to advocate these views, but someone who convinced these people that they represent the majority.
As a lot of the media is just basically shilling for establishments, whether they're political establishments, whether they're academic establishments, you don't have to be right, you just have to be the voice that everyone's listening to. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why this next generation, the people who supported Gamergate, it wasn't entirely the next generation, but those sorts of people are really kind of the hope going forward. They're people who will now be willing to look things up, willing to actually fact-check the media that they consume. They'll be willing to contradict narratives that get a lot of dominance. It's something that's happening commonly. It's probably responsible for the rise of alternative political candidates like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. There's a whole lot of people who just aren't willing to go along with the media's narrative anymore.
And a whole lot of people are now fighting for liberty. They have found their voice. You need to find your voice and let no one suppress it. Speak your mind.
Make a YouTube channel.
Because at the end of the day, a lot of the people who want to tell you how to live are not smart enough to do so.
Yeah, we need the individuals to come back again, rather than the collective.
Make your stand. Join me, Simon and guests, 104.6 FM at 3:15 on Tuesdays for my show, Why Is That? Or anytime online at planetaudio.org.nz.